So I've just recorded this video 3 times and I've stopped at each one because I've come up with some new kind of start to it, and it's all kind of, you know, funky, and it hasn't really told you what I want to talk about. And to be fair, I feel, what do I feel? I feel like we're coming out of the peak woke era, and I feel that we still have a lot of work to do. And I also feel that we really need, as British people, to define what it means to be British, and we can't label everyone with that. We're very empathetic as British people, so we allow people to come in, mass immigration, and we want to try and accommodate that. But then we realise that our resources that we've built up over a period of time are being abused. And I'll just give an example. When I talk about Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, of course, she was what's called an anchor baby, wasn't it? I'm just using an example. Her mother came over here, had Kemi, then took her back to Nigeria. Kemi was schooled in Nigeria. Kemi was schooled in America. Then Kemi comes back over here, and now she's leader of the Conservative Party. I think I've got an issue with that. And I don't think I should have an issue with that. I think I should be more empathetic. Like, welcome, come in. All these people come in. You know, we don't want to be racist. But I do have an issue with it. Because what investment has Kemi Badenoch had in the British people? I mean, tell me. I don't want to be that guy. I'm just using Kemi as an example. We could use anyone. Rishi Sunak, we've spoken about before. Born in Southampton. I was born in Portsmouth. You know, a guy born literally within 30 miles of me. It grows up in Britain, but now he's in America. Is he invested in the British people? And I want to look at, when I talk about Axel Rudakubana, and that's the last time I'm going to mention that idiot's name, because I want you to remember Alice, Elsie and Bebby's name. Those are the 3 girls that were killed in Southport. I don't want you to remember this idiot's name. So we just call him now we'll call him the idiot, all right? People talking about him being a British man. No, he wasn't, mate. I don't care whether he was born in Britain. If my wife and I went to China and we had a kid, my kid's not going to be Chinese because it was born in China. Does that make sense? So just because someone's born in Cardiff, I mean, okay, he comes from a Christian family, and I don't think there is a Muslim convert aspect to this at all. I think he's just a very deeply disturbed young man that was fascinated by all sorts of genocidal stuff. I mean, he came from Rwandan parents. I don't think we're dealing with anything like, you know, I think there is a terrorism aspect to it, but I don't think it's aligned to, and he's not an Islamist. It's not militant Islamism. So I think I think the key here, if I'm honest, guys, with you, is as British people, we've got to be really honest about things. We've got to be truthful about things. We can't throw these accusations out and not expect people to come back and look at us and say, you're sensationalizing something that's quite serious. I think if we look at, say, this idiot, he was fascinated, wasn't he, by death and killing and genocides, and he went and did something that was pretty horrible, and unfortunately, you know, Alice, Ebby, Elsie and Bebby, you know, paid for it with their lives, plus the other, I think, 11 people he stabbed. There's another aspect to this as well that I think British men need to pay attention to, is if something like this is happening, then I'm careful what I say here because, you know, it's YouTube, right? But that threat can be neutralised in the instance. I'm going to leave it at that. That threat can be neutralised in the instance. We wouldn't need to have a court case. I think men know what I'm talking about. Not going to say any more about it. You know what I'm saying? Not going to say any more about it. So look, peak woke, Trump comes in then, and he puts he puts a lot of executive orders out. What an absolute boss level he did. But the 2 he put out really was the one against gender ideology. None of that anymore. No, we're not doing that anymore. Let's concentrate on 2 sexes. Sexes and genders are different. Let's not get into it here. But for young people, let's just talk about sexes. All right, let's talk about male and female. Let's not cloud their young minds that are developing and forming with anything else, because this has caused people to have, you know, real big issues. So sensible. Let's just talk about young people. Let's talk about none of this gender ideology, gender woo stuff. Let's talk about, you know, sensible things for young people. And also, let's ban all the DEI stuff. And that's because I think what happened on the left is they took it too far and they ran with it, and they used it as a leverage to force policies in that were inherently racist and unfair. And I've campaigned against the Royal Air Force for this for a very long time. I've stopped now because they're not doing it anymore. But they were, of course, with the diversity that came in. And you know the videos I've done where they stopped white men joining because they felt they wanted minorities in, because that's what Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary at the time, was saying. We need to force diversity into our military. And that hasn't stopped here. It's still going on. Even under the Labour Party now, it's still pushing it. You know, I don't want to get into details, but you can find it anywhere this is still going on. And now, of course, they're asking guys like me, look at my skin colour, I'm a white guy, they're asking me to rejoin. I don't want to rejoin, I'm 50, I don't want to rejoin into that environment anyway. It's nothing to do with really the service now, it's more I'm doing other things, you know what I mean, and I'd have to sacrifice a lot to go back in, and the offer they're making isn't what I'm that interested in, because I think these people still exist in there. the people that are still pushing these policies. And these are either weak men, and that's what I want to talk about, or weak women. And the problem that these people have got at pushing these diversity policies, my mind will do this during this video, guys, because there's a lot that we have to just bring out. These are weak people that have racial biases that they have not done anything with. So they believe, because remember, diversity, when we start looking at this pathological empathy, this narcissism of these people that push this woke agenda over the last few years, it wasn't there, was it, say a decade and a half ago? These people weren't thinking about putting pronouns in the bio, and then they do put pronouns in the bio, and with those pronouns in their bio, all of a sudden we're supposed to listen to them about what they're, I mean, these people are mentally not sane, thinking that putting pronouns in the bio is all of a sudden, they didn't have it before, but now they have it. Do you know what I mean? Now they're bringing this in. I'm he, him, she, her. Nonsense. Rubbish. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So these were men, but these were also women. Now, women, of course, are more agreeable. They're more accepting of things. Men aren't, which is a bit... So I think these men are quite effeminate men. And I think we've seen a lot of effeminate men being driven up to the senior elements of certain aspects of the military. Not all aspects, but certain aspects. And I think with that, we've got these policies in place, and these people are still there. In fact, when the Royal Air Force asked me to rejoin, it said, Tim, these people are still there, but we know where they are, and mostly we avoid them. Like, that's acceptable. Like, you haven't just sacked them on the spot for pushing this racially biased policy of prioritising, you know, minorities, well, actually minorities in the UK, but the global majority, of course, over the indigenous white population. Remember, we are heirs of Albion, you could say. You know what I mean? If you think about what Albion was, and this is how the British people still need to identify themselves. Albion was Greek, I think 1 BC, the etymology was whiteness, and I think it meant the white cliffs of Dover, not the white skin colour. But when the Greeks came over, and the Romans came over, they started looking at the British Isles, and they called it was called Albion, before it was changed to Britannia, of course, and then the Briton. So when you describe yourself, I think the difference that we do when we look at the idiot who did the Southpaw murders and we say he was British. No, it wasn't to me, mate. It wasn't to me. Second generation immigrant, of course. And the difference between you that might have generations invested in the country. So you may have like 5 or 6 generations, you know, your aunt, your uncle, you know, all that kind of stuff, grandparents, sorry, all that kind of stuff, going back 5 or 6 generations. I know I certainly have. My history... My ancestry is Germanic, of course. I can date it back to Germany on my mum's side through her mother and etc., but also Welsh from my father. My mother was English. So I go back generations of this land, and I feel it, like in my heart and my soul. Like, I'm not leaving. People leave. It's like, fuck you, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'll beep that out. It's not... Like, if you go, don't come back. Because who do you expect to come back to? You come back to the true British people. And if you've gone, don't come back. Think about it, honestly. We have to sacrifice things in this life sometimes, and finances are one thing we have to sacrifice. We've got a very difficult government, and one that we have to control. Has anyone ever spoken to you about managing your boss? Manage the government. That's what we have to do as people. We know Keir Starmer is a man that's very difficult with probably his emotions, a very difficult man, probably doesn't understand himself, and we know that he doesn't lie necessarily, but he's very obfuscating with, the truth doesn't come easy to him, because he worries about how the people will react. A lot of people go, he lies. It's like, you say that if you want, but I don't think he realises he does it. And if someone doesn't realise they're doing it, you can't really educate them anything else. So what I'm saying is, as British people, we need to manage our Prime Minister. We need to manage this government. And the way we do that is sensibly. The way we do that is not by just raging on the internet about stuff. It's like, okay, we can do this with British people. Our history goes back so far. It's so deep. This is when people leave the country. I'm like, leaving to where, mate? Leaving, where are you going? Where are you going? You're going to find a better country than this one. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. You're never going to find a better country than the UK or England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, wherever you are. You're not. You're never going to find better people. You're never going to find people that are more accepting, more gracious. These are Christian values. I've spoken about them before. Now, I do think we need to really stand up against the rise of I would say, Islamism within the UK. I don't think that any person who is Islamic should have a power position in the UK. You don't get Christians going to Saudi Arabia and being part of their government. You're not allowed. You can have church, you can worship, you can't really talk about it. But over here, we're too accepting. And the problem that we have with Islam, as I said, brain going everywhere, guys. All the stuff I really want to talk about, I'm not even talking about it, right? But the problem is, when we allow Islam to come into, say, a country like the UK, it will establish itself in power positions, and it will allow other Muslims, to come up into power positions also. And therefore, you're going to get this bias because their laws are not conducive with ours. Sharia law and the way that women are treated in their society are not conducive with Christian values. They're not. So I would not have any Muslims in power positions in the UK, governmental positions. I just wouldn't allow it. And people say, well, that's unfair. Well, yeah, but that's the UK. That's, if you come to the UK, that's just what we are. So when you come here, or if you're born here, you either, you know, become a Christian, because we're a Christian nation with Christian values. That the king, under which I served the Queen, by the way, is the head of the Catholic Church. Or wrong, head of the Protestant Church. What an idiot! I didn't mean that. I'm a Catholic man. He's head of the Protestant Church. So of course, he therefore defines Christian values. That's exactly what we live under. Our laws are written, Magna Carta, everything, Christian values. Of course, you know what I mean. He's head of the Protestant Church. And this is one of the things we need to start realizing, like, as British people, as people with a history that dates back, you can feel it. I feel it, you know, just touch the ground. You know what I mean? You know where you are. It doesn't feel right when you're in another country. You know, back in 1925, 25% of the globe was controlled by Great Britain. 25% from our small little island. And you're telling me you want to leave? You're going to go to a country where you can speak English and they will speak back to you in English. You know, I know people. My brother is overseas because of work and stuff like this, and he's in a foreign country being spoken to in English. What, did that miraculously happen, or was it the sacrifice of your ancestors that went out there on ships not knowing where the horizon was, but they went anyway to find something that was a venture? You know what I mean? Does that not resonate with you? Because if it doesn't resonate you, it resonates with me. It resonates, right? But I was a naval officer back in the day, you know what I mean, as well. So it resonates with me, like that sacrifice, that willing to go somewhere they never knew they were going to come back, to find something that they never even known was going to be there. And those people end up speaking English, rose nations out of poverty, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? That people developed as part of the British Empire. I don't know why you'd leave. Tell me in the comments why you'd leave. Well, Tim, my taxes are too high. Yeah, they are right now, mate. But you know, we're in a marathon, not a sprint. These things will change. Don't worry about it, you know what I mean? Don't worry about it. It's one of those things. It's a journey, and we're going to do better. And no, I don't get behind any political party right now, because I don't think it's the politics that is going to cure this. I think it's the attitude of the Englishman, the Scotsman, the Welshman, the Northern Irish. The reason I sometimes say English as opposed to British is because of the problem with this idiot that killed the Southport girls. We say he was British. You know what I mean? He wasn't British. He wasn't British at all, was he? We know that. Second generation immigrants, they have a massive issue. Parents of first generation came over from Rwanda. We understand that. We understand it. We get it. 100% we get it, right? Second generation have a real big problem because they're not from where their parents were from. But also, they're not really from the country they were born in. Now, this guy, this idiot, was given all this thing. I think he was at like some stage school thing. He was given lots of opportunity to develop. Really, you know, they tried to integrate him, everything about it, and then he still brought hockey sticks, knives into school. You know, prevent. He was put over to prevent for three times. Obviously, there's going to be an investigation into that now. But he didn't feel like he belonged. How does that happen? This is the problem with immigration we've got, because immigration is done in such an overwhelming manner that integration is impossible. If it had been done like Cameron said, like up to 50,000 a year or something, then people would have integrated. But because it was done at like 1 million, because we've been let down so badly by our governments, by the way. But, you know, we're not victims. Governments do that to you, fine. But, you know, we're British people. We're British men and women, right? We can deal with it. Then the problem is they don't integrate. They go into enclaves. Now, it's up to us to solve this. How do we solve it is the commentary that we need to have, is the discussion we need to have as British men and women. How do we solve this? I think personally, and this is where you're going to hate me, that people in this country will either integrate themselves because they realise what they're up against, because, you know, British men and women are happy to go and destroy the entire world. We've done it before. We'll do it again, etc., etc. Or they'll leave. People will leave. And I think people will leave. I just think we need a bit more Trumpian sort of politics in the country. Again, I'm not saying it's politics. I'm saying it's more of an attitude, isn't it? More of a Trumpian attitude. You can be here, but you're going to have to abide by our rules. And the penalty for not doing so is going to make you so uncomfortable that you're going to have to leave. But the way we do that has to be without confrontation. It has to be with some kind of mature neglect in effect. So you want to walk around and do your Palestinian march in London. Yeah, but no one's paying attention to you, mate. No one's paying attention to you. All right, literally. I mean, no one's paying attention to them now, are they? You know what I mean? If you want to, you know, you want to build 72 mosques, wherever it is. I think Luton's got like 40 or something ludicrous. You know, what's going to happen? You know, how are we going to deal with it? What is it about? Ridicule. Just ridicule what's happening. I think so, because, you know, as I'm saying, we're British. And you may not agree with me. I understand that. Look, I think we're actually on the mend. And I think we know we are, because in our hearts, British people know that Starmer, Labour, Conservatives, Cami Badenoch. These aren't the answer. I don't think that Farage really is, but I think he's the best that people have got. Again, we're not leaning on politics, but people look to the government to solve things for them. We shouldn't. It's not about that. It's about what you have in your heart. It's about who you are. It's about how you unify with people in your community, how you come together. And if people are invested in this country, if they are a first or second generation immigrant, but they are invested in Britain, they're here and British people have left, who do you really want to engage with? Do you want to engage with the British people that have left their nation at a desperate time? Think about that for a second. Because I remember when HSBC was going to do this, and I've still got a bank account with them, and I need to change that. I remember when HSBC were going to do this after Brexit, and I was like, if you do, never come back. That's how I do it as a politician. If you leave the UK, if you're a business that leaves the UK at a difficult time, I'm never having you back. That's what I'd say. People don't understand the politics of Tim. It's pretty ruthless. However, if you've got people in your community, first and second, third, fourth, fifth generation immigrants, you know what I mean? And they're here investing in the UK, they're working, they're good people, surely they are significantly better, and they are significantly more trying to integrate into Britishness than a person who left this country because it got difficult. I'm interested in your opinions because people will be divisive on this, but I know who I want to sit next to. I know I want to stand next to. I know I want to, do things with. And it's not people that are fleeing this country because times got hard. I want times to be hard. That's what makes us. Adversity, isn't it? Suffering. Is it not? What do you want, an easy life? You want an easy life? Is that what you want? My life's never been easy. Alcoholism, flying fast jets, I'm still alive. That's why I'm looking at starting to ride motorcycles now. I need something to make my life difficult. I can't grow otherwise. I stagnate. I'll die. I'll get fat. I'll get cardiovascular disease in my heart. That's why I've got to go to my gym every morning. I've just got to go and do something, and I hate it, but I've got to do it. I've got to cause myself some kind of difficulty because we're British. We have to do that. That's why these people got on those ships. That's why they crossed those horizons. I mean, just get with it a little bit. You know what I mean? I know you are, but people need to. We need to have that personal and that national pride back again, that actually we're a decent country. And we need to kind of say to other countries, if you don't want to invest in us, that's fine. You don't need to. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. Let me know what you think. I've actually got a piece of paper. I was going to read off this and I didn't cover any of it. I love that. I love the fact that, literally I can just talk to you about something that I feel strongly about and you can whack stuff in the comments. Hey, look, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, guys. I really do. I appreciate all your comments and I love them. I love going through them. Tell me about stuff. Literally, tell me what you want me to speak about, I can't speak enough about this stuff. I'm passionate about, being an Englishman here and the heritage and everything. I love it, and I hate the fact that people are leaving. But I understand some people are, and I get it, but I don't think it's right. All right, listen, I'll get this out for you now. Appreciate it, Tim Davies.